You are listening to Curious Cat, a podcast that examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. And I'm your host, Jennifer Hodes. Join me every week as I examine what it means to be a soul in a meat suit. Welcome to Curious Cat. Thanks for listening to Curious Cat. Imagine you're snuggled into bed. You have a glass of water by your side, your book in hand, your phone's on vibrate. Something across the room catches your eye. Movement, fast, a blur. Then you make out the distinct human-shaped shadow as it moves past the far wall. Was it a person? But no one else is home. Could it have been your imagination? Was it a ghost? Chances are it was another encounter with a spreading phenomenon, apparitions that have come to be known as shadow people or shadow beings. Go on TikTok or Instagram and you'll see what I mean about being widespread. Why has the occurrence become so common as of late? Is it because experiencers are less stigmatized and ostracized, so they're willing to tell their stories out loud? That could be. Or are these shadow beings somehow connected with a collective consciousness, and the tumultuous times we've had since March 2020 have been a perfect petri dish to create many more shadow people? We will also dive into the strange link between shadow people and sleep paralysis. Let's get into it. So what exactly are shadow people? Rosemary Ellen Guiley, a paranormal expert who's written over 60 books on an array of supernatural topics, defines shadow people as dark and menacing humanoids. Nina Khan from Bustle e-zine adds that shadow people can be seen either in the periphery or straight on. Author Lauren Christensen, in his book titled Afraid to Sleep, says that experiencers describe a shadow shaped like a human. Most people say the shape is male and that it stands 6 to 8 feet tall. It's often said to appear blacker than the dark room it inhabits. Some have reported glowing red, orange, or yellow eyes. Witnesses have also reported that flashlight beams aren't able to penetrate shadow figures. Some experiencers say their eyes are odd colors or have a reptilian-type appearance. This isn't a new phenomenon. Shadowy human-like figures have appeared in religious texts, folklore, and legends throughout history and permeate all cultures. Some wonder if they've been with us since the beginning of time. Let's look at shadow people described in other cultures. Supernatural creatures known as Jinn of ancient Islamic theology are often thought to be shadow people. And I had a strange experience today as I researched Jinn for this episode. I was in my local grocery store just picking up a couple things. There weren't many people there because it was midday on a Tuesday, but an old man was shopping and a younger man was following behind him on his left side. The younger man had skin the color and sheen of like an old wax candle, like a white wax candle that's kind of yellowed from being in the sunshine for too long. He was thin, like super skinny tweaker thin, and he wore a tank top that was oversized. His left arm hung down at his side. His right was crossed over his chest. With his right hand, he gripped his left upper arm. I ran into them 3 times shopping. I had 3 items on my list and I ran into them 3 times. It was odd. When I went to the self-check to pay, the old man was doing the same thing in a kiosk to my left, but the younger man stood in the middle of all the lanes, and I had to wriggle around him to get to a free station. He dropped his hand, and where it'd been was this patch of thick brown fur. I mean, like a bear, and it was shaped like the number 8. I looked back at the young man, and his eyes were small and blank. He was completely unaware of the people around him, including myself. Okay, so back to jinns. I returned home and began to do research, coming across an article in Psychology Today about shadow people. One woman who's been studying the phenomenon her whole professional life believes these entities are jinn. She's written a book about them and admitted she's been interested in jinn and their parallels to Western culture's angels and demons since she was a kid. She explains that jinn try to appear as human, but can't quite pull it off. They often have one strange thing, like an unexplainable patch of fur in one area of their skin. When I read that, I sort of freaked out. I'm still freaking out now. Did I see a jinn? Was this some display of supernatural power of some kind by the universe? I couldn't help thinking that this podcast episode was preordained by the universe. So after the experience, I did a deep dive into jinn, and I know it's a subtopic, but I just had to share it with you here. According to lore, jinn inhabited the planet first and were pushed out by humans or sidelined. Some are still angry about it and hate humankind as a result. Other motives for interacting with us include curiosity, infatuation, obsession, playfulness, trickiness, hostility, and malevolence. Some believe jinn can be benevolent and helpful, but that their assistance comes at a price. Author Guiley says that, like people, that jinn can't be categorized as all good or bad. Dr. Catherine Ramsland from Psychology Today says the Western bastardization of the word jinn into genie has created a limited portrait of a wish granter that's far from accurate. It also suggests that we are superior to them and they must submit to our desires, which also isn't true. Going back to other shadow people in other cultures across the world, the Native American Choctaw tribe includes shadowy beings known as Nalusa Cheeto, and it's not Cheeto like the little chips. It's Chito, Nalusa Cheeto, in their hallowed mythology. From Brazil, a folkloric creature with long fingernails lurks on rooftops at night. Called pisadeira, it tramps on the chests of unsuspecting sleepers. In Spain, there's a tale of Pasanta, a black animal, often a dog or cat, that invades homes and sits on the chests of sleepers, making it tough to breathe and prompting nightmares. Japanese folklore refers to a summoner who calls upon a vengeful spirit to suffocate enemies through a phenomenon called kanashiabari, which is, quote, the state of being totally bound as if constrained by metal chains. There are 4 main types of shadow people, according to pararational.com. Some are more dangerous than others. Human-shaped shadow people make up the bulk of shadow sightings. This count includes cloaked figures, those wearing hats, and old hags. The lurking type seem more interested in us, or at least in feeding off of our energy. Others are negative, pure and simple. The second type is black mass shadow people. These were once human, but are growing in power, and as they do, they lose their humanness. So they're less human looking, still of the same general size. The black mass gives the impression of being a human figure, but is far more blurry or fuzzy. They can change shape, forming more of a cloud at times. And many of these are former negative spirits that have begun to grow in power and are losing those human identities. As they absorb more and more negative emotions, their sense of being human and who they used to be fades and distorts. When they grow further in power, they evolve into the demonic type, which is the third type. Demonic shadow people with red eyes. So the most dangerous of the types of shadow people, the demonic shadows, should be avoided at all costs. These are the few you can encounter and see their eyes, though that's not always the case. Many accounts talk of glowing red eyes, which is an ominous sign. Typically, these retain their human shapes, but often the features are exaggerated. So they're taller than human beings are. They might have wings or horns or elongated fingers. They do not give the impression of being a normal ghost or a sentient, intelligent entity. As luck would have it, this type is normally tethered to one location, though you do always have the power to say, "You do not have permission to attach to me or follow me," just to be sure. The fourth category is a catch basin, other types of shadow figures, which include the old hag, which is reported less frequently than the Hat Man, but she often sits on the experiencer's chest, making it tough to breathe. Non-human or aliens, which paranormal researcher Guiley notes may be Jinn in disguise, and forest types who linger in or near trees and are driven to protect nature. If they're spotted by humans, they mimic our movements. So if we walk, they walk. If we pause, they pause. So it's kind of creepy, but actually, since they're guarding trees, I sort of love them in a weird way. So how did shadow people come to be? I mentioned earlier that one theory in the case of Jinn is that they inhabited Earth before us and, like the Christian angel story, were pushed out or banished. But the Jinn linger in this form now to mess with us on Earth. Others claim shadow people are an accidental byproduct of our fears. If that sounds familiar, poltergeists have a similar explanation. This theory would explain why there seem to be more shadow people now than ever before. Did we create an army of shadow people during the pandemic? I refuse to give this any energy, so I'm going to just move on. OBEs. Are shadow people actually folks having out-of-body experiences? Or are they the astral bodies of nighttime explorers? I spoke about astral projecting in a prior episode, but the idea is that our souls, once free of our sleeping bodies, float around places, and if they are seen by others, maybe they present as shadow people. Could they be time travelers? This one resonates with me. Are they people from the future, and as they move in our timeline, they appear as shadows? I'll go even further. If they are our future selves, maybe they're coming back to warn us of some impending doom or trying to intercede and keep us from some trouble. Wouldn't that explain their lack of distinguishing details? Maybe our brains are protecting us from something mind-blowing like that, and it is scrubbing out features to keep us sane? I don't know. Aliens. Some believe shadow people are visitors that have come from other galaxies or even other dimensions, and they're manifesting in shadow form as they interact with us. They go on to say that the hats or capes and coats are iterations of what they think human beings wear. I told you there was this strange correlation between shadow people and sleep paralysis. Shadow people are experienced by most people that suffer from sleep paralysis. But before we get into that, I'd like to flesh out the details of sleep paralysis if you don't know anybody or you yourself don't suffer from sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis is a state in which you are still dreaming and sleeping, but your eyes open and your entire body feels paralyzed because your senses didn't wake up when your brain did. That delay is the cause of sleep paralysis. At the same time, you may experience hallucinations or dreams with your eyes wide open, say some medical professionals. More sleep paralysis facts. It occurs during REM sleep, as do dreams. REM is when your brain rejuvenates and rests. REM is when your brain processes your day and prepares to store it in your long-term memory. Drinking alcohol reduces REM. Adults spend 20% of their sleep time in REM. In REM, your arms, legs, torso, and head are paralyzed. It's called atonia, and it's nature's way of preventing us from hurting ourselves during active dreaming. Sleep paralysis does not indicate a link to mental illness issues, as was thought in the past. I mean, the not too distant past, like last month, I think. That's how quickly this science is evolving. Common symptoms of sleep paralysis are being awake, a temporary inability to move or speak, only the eyes move, pressure on the chest, a feeling of suffocation, sense of being outside the body or dissociated from your body. Ordinary sounds trigger the imagination, hallucinations, intense fear, sweating, head and muscle pain, a sense of helplessness. Author and blogger of otherworldlyoracle.com links her experience with shadow people with her bouts of sleep paralysis. She's not the only one. In fact, the majority of sufferers report encounters with shadow beings. Her take is that shadow figures are astral beings or low-level entities that feed off of our energy while our souls are out traveling or when our guard is down, like when we sleep. She goes on to say, and this has been proven by medical experts, that sleep paralysis and accounts of shadow people are most often experienced when we're in a hypnagogic state, which is the phase between sleep and wake states. She says when our brains wake up fast and we feel paralyzed, sometimes we catch those low-level entities feeding on our energy. And that is so creepy to think about. Sleep paralysis is a medically proven condition, so we must look somberly at reports of similar observations. There's no room for ridicule. People around the world without any discernible connection are experiencing frightening things, often very similar things. So what explains this? I've got a story that I found on the internet that I'd like to share with you. This was about 10 years ago, this person writes, but still gives me chills to this day. I sometimes get sleep paralysis, but this time I kept hearing a voice talking to me, but my brain could not retain or make sense of anything it said. It felt like it was sitting on the pillow next to me. I slept alone in a queen-size bed, and I could not see it, and it sounded like a very young, childlike voice. I remember somehow having a moment of clarity from the terror and asking it, "Are you a boy or a girl?" It answered the only words I retained from that event. "We are many." And then I woke up. When it comes to sleep paralysis, we know this field needs further exploration in both the medical aspect and the paranormal aspect. The link to shadow people makes this topic one that Kyle and I will not soon be forgetting or considering closing anytime soon. An estimated 75% of sleep paralysis episodes involve hallucinations that are distinct from typical dreams. The most common are broken down into 3 categories. The intruder hallucinations, which involve the perception of a dangerous person or presence in the room. The chest pressure hallucinations, also called incubus hallucinations, that can incite a feeling of suffocation. And these frequently occur with intruder hallucinations. And the third, vestibular motor or VM hallucinations, which can include feelings of movement, such as flying or out-of-body sensations. 90% of episodes are associated with fear. Episodes can last from a few seconds to 20 minutes. The average length is about 6 or 7 minutes. The age of the afflicted averages 7 to 25 years old, though some say sleep paralysis can be experienced throughout the 30s and 40s. Experts don't know why it occurs, but it's more common for people that suffer nighttime leg cramps, have night shift jobs, or they're suffering from jet lag. Most sufferers are afflicted with anxiety disorders or PTSD and have had exposure to sexual abuse or other childhood traumas. I feel like I need to add a footnote to that one because they're actually opening up their eyes to see that maybe there isn't the same link that they thought to those occurrences and sleep paralysis. And this has just been coming out with research recently. There's not enough on that yet, but I just wanted to put a footnote there. But because the root cause of sleep paralysis is not yet understood, medical experts suggest we take a proactive approach, which involves improving sleep hygiene. And that is everything that relates to the nighttime routine and includes going to bed at the same time each night if you can, investing in the best possible mattress and pillow, set up the bedroom to have limited light and noise, reduce the consumption of alcohol and caffeine, especially in the evening, put away your electronics a half hour before sleep. Cognitive behavioral therapies, or CBTs, are showing promise, turning negative emotions into more positive sleep outcomes, but we're still in the early days here. Medical science says the hallucination phenomenon could be a disturbance in the parietal cortex, an area of your brain that interprets your senses and allows you to create spatially coordinated images. Oh, one final note, you're most likely to experience sleep paralysis when you sleep belly up. Sleep on your stomach for the best chance of avoiding a sleep paralysis episodes. So I wanted to share some stories of encounters with shadow people. Earlier, I shared my recent encounter with what might have been a Jinn at my local store. But while I was doing research for this episode, I remembered another time, 17 years ago, when I faced a shadow person. My kids were young at the time, and they shared a full-size mattress on the bottom of a bunk bed. I'd been snuggled between them reading bedtime stories when we all fell asleep. Their room was a loft that captured a light from the first floor, so it was never completely dark. A few hours passed, and I startled awake to find a tall, floor-to-ceiling height shadow figure looming over us. It was staring down at me and the kids. The thing had this pointed head and long, thin shadow body. In my bones, I knew it was after my kids. I sprang to my feet and I screamed, "Leave my kids alone. Get out of here, I command you." And it disappeared. I want to say it almost evaporated through the window that was right beside it. In the days that followed, my eldest became very ill. We were in and out of the doctor's office for a good month and a half until finally a blood draw showed the origins of that illness, which was sepsis. It has a 50% mortality rate. Now, I'm not saying the shadow figure caused the sepsis. We know it caused it probably. We traced it back, but maybe it was one of those ominous warnings that something bad was going to happen. 2 rounds of the right antibiotic for that specific bacteria, and they were good as new. So unsettled, I did call a family friend who is also a minister, and she cleansed and cleared the home. That's when I learned about saging and salting and made that part of my routine. I usually would do it every week or 2, even to this day. Actually, I always know when I need to cleanse and clear the house with sage because I'll vacuum and I'll mop the floors and then I'll say, something's not clean about the house. And then my other brain, my spiritual brain, will kick in and go, oh, actually, what you need is a saging. It's that kind of cleaning. The second story I wanted to share comes from a beloved listener of Curious Cat who will remain anonymous. She gave her account of a time as a child when a shadow figure entered her room. Accustomed to shutting and locking her room at night before she went to bed, the strange figure so unsettled her that she jumped up to check that the door was shut all the way and locked. In our conversation, we wondered if it was a byproduct of a negative member of the family or if it was some iteration of herself that came that night to make sure she knew her door was not locked but needed to be. Isn't that interesting? The final account comes from Lauren Christensen's book I told you about, Afraid to Sleep. Bear with me because I'd like to read the full account verbatim. Carol Krauser Hasegawa is a friend, a veteran martial artist, yogi teacher, and a strong advocate of living a healthy lifestyle, mentally and physically. He currently lives in Thailand. This is his account. Looking back as a middle-aged man to the boy I was at 17, I remember it was definitely hard to wrap my head around my first sleep paralysis experience. I might have had a few earlier episodes as a child, but nothing close to that June morning when I was in training at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Boot camp was over and we were into our advanced individual training. Things had relaxed a little, which roughly translates to we weren't getting harassed 24/7 any longer, and we had some weekends off. On this particular Sunday morning, I was sleeping in our barracks day room in an attached room at the end of the bay. It was a place to relax, lift weights, and play games. It was right after Sunday breakfast, and I couldn't believe I actually had the place to myself. It didn't take long for me to settle into a relaxed, food-induced coma on the sofa. Most of my life, I've favored sleeping belly down with a pillow propped under my head, and this was how I remember dozing off as I looked across the room and out the window. It couldn't have been more than 20 minutes when a sound woke me up. I didn't think it was coming from outside, but I couldn't tell where else. The closest thing I could compare it to was Alfred Hitchcock's film, The Birds. That is, the sounds of birds attacking, but the noise I heard wasn't coming from a movie. It was in the room or inside my head. What I knew for sure was that it was getting louder. I started freaking the hell out. It was time to leave or wake up, except I was awake. Wasn't I? Confusion. I struggled to open my eyes, and as I did, I could still see through the window across the room. The shadows of people and things moving. I could smell the morning's breakfast wafting from the chow hall a few buildings away, but I could not move. I felt totally paralyzed, which only added to my confusion. Sounds like the screaming at the beginning of Pink Floyd's song Comfortably Numb, except I sure as hell wasn't comfortably numb. The screaming began to mix with the sound of moaning and squawking birds. It all grew louder and louder as I struggled to move off the couch, but my body was refusing to cooperate. No matter how hard I mentally commanded it, it was as if a 300-pound entity was lying on me from head to foot. Then I heard an echoing voice, ominous, leering, "God be damned, God be damned, God be damned." I had never been a fan of horror movies, but what was going on was about to snap my 17-year-old mind, regardless that I was a newly minted professional soldier. There was no way to keep track of time, but looking back on it, I would estimate that my horrific experience lasted a minute, maybe two. Then it was over. First, the sounds faded. Then the weight seemed to lift off me, allowing my body to once again work. I flew off the couch and out the door, crashing into a few of my fellow soldiers. They laughed at me and asked, "What the hell is wrong with you?" I called them a name and yelled, "You scared the hell out of me." They looked at each other and then at me. "Brother," one of them said, "we have no idea what you're talking about. What happened? You look like you've seen a ghost." I cursed under my breath and wandered off, rationalizing that maybe what I had experienced was a spirit or spirits. A lot of Native Americans had been interred in the area in the name of civilizing them, so perhaps there were disgruntled spirits about. I had grown up surrounded by that culture, so at the time, that made the most sense to me. And that ends his account, which is pretty, visceral, isn't it? I wanted to end the sleep paralysis part with some quick remedies to lessen the occurrence of sleep paralysis episodes. No caffeine or alcohol in the evenings. Reduce your overall stress if you can. Take a walk in nature before bed. Try sleeping on your belly. And if you wake to an episode, try squeezing your hand shut, open, and repeat this until the rest of your body becomes mobile again. Whether encountered during sleep or awake, there are ways to protect yourself from shadow figures. If you encounter one, it's important to face and control your fears. If you can't control that fear and find yourself stuck in negative emotions, it will only worsen the situation. Shadow figures usually disappear on their own, so remain calm. In fact, that's the only thing you can control is your reaction. Just breathe through it. Surround yourself with positive energy. Start by clearing all negative energies from your life. This includes personal negativity. If you remain positive, you won't have anything for them to feed off of. Use crystals to enhance and maintain that positive vibe. Call on higher powers for protection. Sometimes we need extra help. If you're being stalked by a negative energy, it's advisable to call upon positive spirits you can for assistance. Whether it's God, spirits, angels, or ancestors, call upon them to cut any ties, tethers, or connections. Then ask that they protect you against shadow entities or any other dark force energies. Take time, especially right before you go to bed, to call upon your protection army to watch over you and be sure to say thank you to them for doing so. Add a protective circle around your bed. This only takes a couple minutes. Sprinkle sea salt around your bed, declaring the area a negativity no-go zone. Crystals work as well. You can set them at the four corners of your bed to achieve the same effect. Some find comfort in keeping a light on in their bedroom. If you do that, choose to use a blindfold or eye pillow to protect your eyes from the light so you can still sleep. Meditate every day and develop your spiritual muscles. I said keep your vibration high, but raise your vibration. When I saw that strange Jinn at the grocery store, I consciously cleared my energies as I left the store. I then played 80s music in the car stereo, which is very happy, hyper music for me, and sang all the way during the drive home. Low vibrations come from depression, stress, sadness, chronic illness, drug and alcohol addiction, envy. Raise your vibration by taking care of yourself. Eat healthy, drink lots of water, give up unhealthy habits like smoking, vaping, and excessive drinking. Get plenty of sleep and spend time in nature. Also, seek mental health through therapy. Wear protective jewelry. It's a constant shadow entity protection. I've even seen people with protective tattoos on their skin. They take it to the next level. You can make your own protective necklace by repurposing an old dog tag and a chain. Use a Sharpie to draw protective symbols on the blank side. Do a web search for symbols that resonate with you. Angels, a simple cross, rune stones can even provide inspiration. Next, pray to charge your necklace with white light. Draw the same protective symbol or picture on the soles of your shoes if you like, so you're safe when you're out and about. Refresh your necklace's energy in sunshine or in the light of the full moon each month. Keep protective crystals in your pockets. Oh, also one final note, crystals with protective energies include tiger's eye, black tourmaline, amethyst, obsidian, selenite, black onyx, pyrite, clear quartz, moonstones, citrine, rose quartz, or hematite, just to name a few. No matter what, don't be afraid to seek help. If none of these steps have worked, talk to a priest or another spiritual advisor to rid you of any attachment. I hope you've learned something new from today's discussion, that if you suffer from sleep paralysis, you're not alone. Many other people suffer, and I hope I've helped you find new ways to lessen the episodes. If you've encountered shadow people, reach out to me on socials. I'd love to know your stories. The world is much more complex than it seems at first glance, doesn't it? Thank you for listening to Curious Cat. Huge gratitude for my art director and audio engineer. If you're in need of those services, please find their links in the show notes. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay curious. I love you.
Hey, you. Yes, you. Are you looking for a new podcast that appeals to your scientific curiosity, but is also a little bit spooky?
Show me how I died in a past life.
Well, look no further, because this cat is where it's at.
He had concerns about the ethics surrounding AI, feeling they had achieved consciousness.
Curious Cat Podcast examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. Listen every week with your host, Jennifer Holtz, as she and her guests explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit.
We were healing karma together. They were all kind of predestined to resolve something.
Listen on all your favorite streaming apps and continue the conversation on Twitter at CuriousCatPodCA, or find Jennifer and all her links at Jennifer L. Holtz, spelled HOTES.com.